All right, everyone. Hello. How are you guys? Olivia Reiner here with Jim Ozarski for Packers News, and we are here to wrap up the Packers' nail-biting victory over the Detroit Lions, a 23-20 win that, gosh, Mason Crosby, this time last year when he was last in Detroit, was not such a great day for him.
Right.
Missing a number of kicks, and now he got to have a little bit of redemption here with the walk-off field goal. It's been quite the season for him. It's been quite the season for the Packers as a whole. Kind of a typical Packers-y win today, Jim, for this team.
Yeah, once again, Olivia, the mantra in the locker room, all sides of the ball was, we don't care if it's ugly, we don't care what you want to call it. At the end of the day, it's a win. 13-3, clinch the number 2 seed and a bye, at least one home game. As you guys watch this live, we won't know about that 1 seed until much later this evening. But they know, yeah, I think most of us thought they would come out and start fast and put this team away early, Olivia, and the Lions wanted nothing to do with that.
Of course not. No, not at all.
No, they, the Packers had to come from behind second time this year against Detroit, which is quite amazing if you think about a team that finished 3-12-1.
Right. Like you said, the Packers did not have a lead against the Lions at any point until the very end of the game in both of their contests this season. How can you explain that? How do you account for the fact that the Packers are 13-3? They've finished the regular season with an astounding record that very few people thought that they would, but they play in games like that against a Detroit Lions team that had a pretty ugly, I believe, what was it? It was 12. I don't know what the record was exactly, but not.
Yeah, 3-11-1 coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they hadn't won since October.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, everyone admitted from Matt LaFleur on down that they were flat. They started slow. Was it because of the Monday night game? Was it because of having Wednesday off or not actually practicing this week? I don't know. But again, you're right. I mean, I think the come from behind element is what was new. They haven't really done. Detroit's the last time they really have done that. But this is what they do. They play. I guess it's a shame on us for thinking it would have been different. They play close games, regardless of opponent.
Mm-hmm. So I'll just start getting right over to your questions in the Facebook comments right now. There's lots of you in there as you're getting ready for San Francisco Seahawks on television about like an hour or so from now. So get comfy, hang out with us. So Mark asks, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers? He thinks it's getting to be a concern. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of you guys in here asking about Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers had a really, really tough first half. He went 6 for 18, 90 yards.
Yeah.
That's not Aaron Rodgers-y. And
no.
He looked like he was really overthrowing some of his receivers. There were a couple drops in the first half.
Yeah.
One from Jimmy Graham, another from, who was the other one?
Marquez Valdez-Scantling had one, but, when the quarterback isn't pressured and the receiver isn't covered, the ball probably shouldn't be on his back shoulder. So that was a two-way error on that one.
Sure. It's strange, but regardless, after the game, Aaron Rodgers said that even though he overthrew some of the passes and he acknowledged that, he didn't feel like he was super off in the game today, even though to the rest of us, it did look like he was pretty off.
Yeah, I think in the moment afterwards, Olivia, I think guys it took Elton Jenkins a minute to sort of admit that on the final screenplay with Aaron Jones that he probably should have held his block a little longer so the quarterback wasn't pressured. So, I think in the moment it's hard for them to, in a win, really say this was bad. But it was. Look, up until that 95-yard drive, Rodgers was not good. He was 8 of 10 for 80 yards, I want to say, on that 95-yard, and finally found a rhythm in sort of a shorter passing game, and then he went away from that again. So who knows? I don't know why that was, but clearly that's something they'll need to fix if they're going to host, I don't know, whether it be a hot Minnesota or Eagles team or the Saints in 2 weeks. That, you can't have, what was it, 22 of 55, or 27 of 55, 49%. That's not, I don't know if that's going to get them by in the playoffs.
There are bigger challenges ahead, for sure. Jason asks if we have any updates on Aaron Jones' hand. He left the game just for a little bit after what he said, what happened. It was hard to tell in the moment. Looking back at the replay, you can kind of tell that Jones got his hand stepped on.
Yes.
He said after the game that he couldn't feel it for a little bit, and once he came out, trainers looked at it, and once he could start feeling it again, he knew he would be okay, and then he came back to the game. He was fine. So that's the update. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a long-term concern there for Aaron Jones, a guy that started this season healthy and ended this season healthy, which honestly, 1,000 rushing yards is a huge accomplishment. Aaron Jones has a lot to be proud of. Just shy of that 20, breaking that 20 touchdown record set back in 2003 by Amon Green. He finishes at 19. All very impressive, but my goodness, Aaron Jones staying healthy for the entire season, I think is right up there.
Yeah, that was a question rightfully surrounding him. The legs have stayed healthy, and look, he's carried the load. 48 rushes in the last 2 weeks, 25 a season high on Sunday. Olivia, 100 yards, not a season high, but I'd argue it was probably the toughest running he has faced all year, even against the Lions defense that I don't even know who was playing for them. I mean, they were losing guys throughout the game, so a lot of credit to Detroit. Real quick on Jones, he also kind of tweaked the biceps on that play, but he kind of admitted he might feel it a little more in a few weeks. Other injury news, Brian Bulaga out with a concussion. We saw him post-game, not allowed to speak to him, but he was sort of making jokes as he was exiting. Obviously, the bye week's going to do him good. Corey Linsley with the back. Not sure. He's been dealing with that all year. Again, I would imagine the bye week will do him well also.
Yeah, also B.J. Goodson left the game early with a neck injury. Yeah. Alan Lazard left the game with a left ankle injury.
And Lazard said he, at least post-game, said it wasn't swollen. A guy fell on it. He thinks he's good.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, the bye is important for a lot of reasons. A lot of Super Bowl teams, I think Pete Doherty, you can go read the piece that he wrote over on PackersNews.com. At least one of the teams in the Super Bowl has had a bye for the last million years or something. I don't know.
Important.
Go read the exact numbers over on PackersNews.com. But it's important for this team to have a bye because it's important for this team to be healthy. Leaving this game, the last game of the regular season, they lost some big names, especially along the offensive line. That being said, Lucas Patrick, Jared Beldier stepped up in their places and performed very well. However, in the playoffs, they're going to want their starters to be nice and rested, and that bye, Mason Crosby did them a huge favor.
That was it was, and Crosby missed a 51-yarder. Odd statistical note, because I think I was the only one paying attention to this, his miss prevented him from setting the single-season Packers record by 2/10 of a percentage point.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
So it was a career year for Mason Crosby, but he still trailed Jan Stenerud, 1982. Olivia was not born in 1982.
No, I was not. I was not even a thought in my parents' brain. That is very funny. Carolyn says, nice to see Jay Sternberger out there on special teams today. How about Jay Sternberger, the fullback?
Yeah, that was no Danny Vitale. It was interesting. Matt LaFleur said the screen game wasn't a big part of the game plan. He gave credit to Detroit for that. But I wonder if some of that had to do with no Danny Vitale. Not that he's like an all-world blocker, but he that's what he does. He can do that fairly well. Jay Sternberger, a little bit of action. Tyler Ervin, a lot of action snap-wise, Olivia, but more so as a receiver. In some of those quote-unquote two-back sets with no Jamal Williams, it was really Aaron Jones taking the ball.
It was, and Dexter Williams had 2 carries for 9 yards. So
that was, I think, when Jones went out with that hand.
It was very brief, so not a lot there. It was mostly the Aaron Jones day with a sprinkle of Tyler Ervin, but hey, I think they'll be happy to get back Jamal Williams if he's able to recover in time for the first game of the playoffs. So Jason says, Aaron Rodgers has been using a lot of short pass situations. I know he has the ability for the long pass. Agreed. I would say it's kind of the opposite. We saw him going for some really long balls.
At least today specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the game plan, I think.
Yeah.
Detroit plays a lot of man coverage. They don't play it very well, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. Mitch Trubisky comes in here and looks fantastic. So they just couldn't connect. There was a 33-yarder to Davante Adams, a 20-yard touchdown to Adams, 20 yards to Jimmy Graham. Olivia, I mean, I think it was there. They just didn't, for all of their attempts, could not make it work. Actually, the short passing game is what got them on track, I thought,
Absolutely.
in the second half.
100%. It's helped set up their touchdown, and hey, that's, you got to do what you got to do. Even though Aaron Rodgers certainly we know that he has that ability, we didn't get to see it very much today. We even saw Marquez Valdes-Scantling being utilized more in the short passing game, which isn't something he hasn't been utilized very much at all this season, but typically when he is used, it's usually long balls down the field.
Yeah, they tried a couple times to him, I think. We mentioned the drop, which would have been a big catch and run. An 11-yard reception, actually, right before that Aaron Jones screen in the fourth quarter. Definitely an outlet throw for Rodgers. Valdes-Scantling was there, was 11 yards. Small things to build on, I think, offensively in that way.
Jerron says that the Packers defense is ready for the playoffs. The Packers defense started off a little slow. It took them a little bit of time to get into a rhythm, but eventually they started forcing punts on the Lions' drives. I also think the Lions started to turn into the Lions, and the Packers prove that they are what their record is.
Yeah, it was, Kenny Golladay caught 3 balls for 72 yards, 42 on one play that knocked him out, quite literally with the concussion. Jeff Blau threw only had 50 more yards passing after Golladay was out. So Detroit, where they did their damage, was in the run game, 6.8 yards per carry, 171 rushing yards. Not for as good as the Packers' run D has been the last 4 weeks. This was and a lot of explosive plays. 40-yard run, 20-yard run, 15-yard run. But I would agree with you, Jerron. I think your point is this defense has sort of found its way. I think they just were as flat maybe as the rest of the team early. Now, that said, I think they kept them in it second half. They couldn't allow Detroit to score touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. We've got our friend Michael in the comments saying that he is now a PackersNews.com subscriber.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Eddie says that Lucas Patrick earned his money today. Yes, he did. He signed a contract extension just, yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's big money for him. He came in and he held down the fort. He got some experience playing this season after Corey Linsley went out with a concussion. I believe that was back against the Raiders. Dallas, thank you. I knew it was around that
early
time of year. Yeah, so that's big that he got that experience under his belt. I remember that game. There were some snap issues, a little shaky, but for the most part, he looked good out there today. Yeah,
I think that experience helped him for sure to have to do that on the road in Dallas in a big game, and it was pretty loud for the few fans that were here. So yeah, I think Patrick acquitted himself pretty well.
Yes. Todd says J.K. Scott did a nice job. Jim, you gave J.K. Scott the game ball on your insider story over on PackersNews.com.
Yeah, I wrote a lot about Aaron Jones, but I thought J.K. needed that recognition. The one touchback into the end zone. I think they were playing target golf there, these punters, and twice it worked, backing up the Lions deep in their territory, giving that offense a couple chances. So, I thought J.K. Scott punted really well.
So we've talked about Aaron Jones, who finishes the season with 1,084 rushing yards. Very impressive. But why don't we talk about Davante Adams for a moment? The guy, once again, is 3 yards short of reaching 1,000 on the season. But my goodness, remember, guys, he missed 4 games this season. Just so think about what he could have achieved had the toe injury not popped up against Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Really, it's his second best season receptions-wise, over 80. Obviously coming up just a little short there on the 1,000 yards. That would have been back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I think while I think the Packers and Packers fans knew how good Davante was, last year showed he was one of the best receivers in football. Missing 4 games and putting up these kind of numbers, I think only reinforced that it wasn't sort of a one-off, if you will. Yes, he gets a lot of targets, but he's very good.
Jason gives his kudos to Brian Gutekunst for bringing in the Smith brothers. Both Zadarius and Preston Smith said that they've brought great energy into this season. Zadarius Smith specifically, we can talk about him today. He's been very flashy, as we all know, this season. Lots of sacks. However, today, I think he had 1 tackle, 2 quarterback hits. didn't seem like he was coming up very much on the stat sheet, but he played a really good game, got pressure on the quarterback, and helped set up Blake Martinez's interception that really helped shift the momentum of this game.
Yeah, there's a couple non-box score stats, I guess. I mean, maybe that pressure for Martinez interception is one. I know he had, I think Kenny Clark ended up with the official tackle for loss, but Zadarius Smith is the one who made first contact. No, for sure. I think, Preston Smith's the interesting one, Olivia. We haven't heard his name as much here at the tail end of the season, and I'm curious about that. Because Mike Pettin has moved Zadarius around to get him away from double teams. We've seen that work and help the interior of the D-line. Is that not helping Preston Smith? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think if the Packers want to make a deep run, they're going to see they need to see number 91 sacking the quarterback again, at least a little more frequently.
Interesting. Something to keep an eye on heading into the playoffs. Corey says this team plays down or up to its competition. I would say that they play down to their competition. Heading into this game, all of us thought that this would have a much wider margin than it ultimately did, and we've headed into a couple games feeling that way this season. This team, I think, if they can take pride in anything, it's that they know how to grind out wins. Somehow, one-score victories, there's been a lot of them this season. It's not always pretty. It, in fact, rarely is very pretty. Right. But today seemed to be the real icing on the cake of ugly wins.
Yeah, and, to your point, and Adrian Amos agreed with that, actually, Olivia, in the locker room. He said, look, the playoffs are going to be close games, so we're not going to be afraid of that. We're not going to be panicked by it. They know that they probably should look better for being as good as they think they are. But, to play up, I guess Chicago week 1, like matching that intensity and that sort of Super Bowl hype to start the season. Dallas was a kind of a hyped game. So I guess, and then obviously, though, they named San Francisco, the biggest game. So I think we have to see what they're going to look like, feel like in that first playoff game in a couple weeks.
All right, just a quick wrap up here on the injury front. Tom is asking about injuries to the offensive line. We don't know exactly how Brian Bulaga and Corey Linsley are doing. They left the game early. They did not return, so we'll find out maybe at some point this week. We'll see exactly. There's really not a lot of precedent for the Packers having a bye week under head coach Matt LaFleur because head coach Matt LaFleur is brand new and the Packers are in the playoffs. So we don't know exactly what the availability is going to be like, what the injury report is going to be like. So obviously make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com for lots of updates going forward. But everybody else, you said you heard from Alan Lazard, and he sounds like
Alan Lazard,
okay.
He did. He didn't. He was asked directly if there's any swelling or whatever, and he said no, he's good. Aaron Jones, right hand, right biceps. Obviously, he finished the game. He admitted he might be a little sore in a couple days. Linsley with the back, who knows? He's been dealing with that all year, so I guess we have to see. But again, the bye week. Brian Bulaga, again, we saw him post-game. Not allowed to speak to him in the concussion protocol, but he was making jokes as we were all coming in. Seemed like himself for whatever that's worth. And he was out. He wasn't sort of in the dark room, for instance. He's able to travel home, which is a good sign. And then B.J. Goodson with the neck. I don't know if it's related to his earlier season issue with that. So, again, we'll just have to see.
All right. Someone had asked in here what the feeling in the locker room was like. I thought it was pretty quiet. I know coming off the field, the guys were a little bit quieter than, let's say, if you compare it to last
Monday.
week.
Yeah, this was definitely, they felt good about getting the win and getting the bye. Not the same feeling as Monday night for sure. I think they know they maybe got away with one to a degree.
Yeah. Well, that all being said, Dave says a win's a win. Don't worry about pretty wins. Would you? It's true.
Exactly.
Would you rather have a beautiful loss or an ugly win? I'm sure the Packers would say an ugly win, and they have said ugly wins every single time. So that's where they are. That's the team that they are right now, and we've got a whole week. 2 weeks until the Packers play football again, and this time it'll be playoff football, at least one game at home at Lambeau Field. So we'll see exactly how the Seahawks-49ers game pans out tonight. I'm sure you guys are going to be wanting to keep an eye on how that goes because if the Seahawks win over the 49ers, that means the Packers are the number 1 seed in the NFC, which sounds kind of insane to say, but wow.
Yeah, 13-3 is hard to ignore.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to wrap it up here. Make sure you're following us over on PackersNews.com for all of your Packers news. Follow us on social media so you get lots of updates wherever you check your socials, your phone, your laptop, all of the good places. We'll be back with you guys hopefully soon this week. We're not sure exactly what the schedule is going to be, if they're going to be practicing or not, if we're going to be allowed to go to practice. So this is all very new to us. So again, make sure you're checking out our website, our social media accounts, because we will be letting you know exactly what the dealio is over